Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. So this is the fourth part of the self-therapy series of YouTube videos. And so we've now talked about the river of emotion and how it can become blocked at some areas. So I'm just going to quickly just review. So we talked about how we have a river of emotion. Sometimes there's a big rainstorm, and if there's blockages, you can get the floods. And so dealing with the damage from the flood, removing the blockage, deepening the river, shoring up the banks, means that you can handle further disturbances. And to build on those floods of emotion, then we talk about the bomb, right? When our subconscious is full and a new bomb drops into an already full subconscious, it leads to the displacement of related or unrelated, undealt with, unprocessed emotion that then enters your conscious space and overwhelms you. So that idea of decluttering this space slowly, little bits over time, allows you to take back the part of your mind that has been turned into a landfill for past stuff. So we talked about draining this, and one of the difficulties is that this bomb that drops constantly, regularly, frequently, such as in a, if you're currently living in an abusive relationship, for example, the bomb's always dropping because someone's always saying something. You're always getting triggered. Or, social anxiety is another example where being in people is triggering something. And so we avoid people, which results in isolation and doesn't really, makes the problem worse, really. So what's happening there? Where does that anxiety come from? So the bomb gets dropped, the trigger goes off, the bomb blows up, displaces stuff. And actually that process of displacement, unfortunately, activates the survival mind. And the activation of the survival mind creates a reversal. Creates a reversal of the control systems whereby the instincts, are now dominating the frontal cortex. So the parts of your mind that are thinking properly, normally, that are planning long-term, are now governed by short-term thinking, which is good if there really is a bear. That's what you want. If there's a bear, you don't want to be thinking long-term and philosophizing. You need to take action, and that's what it's meant for. But trouble is that red little bomb that goes off usually activates a survival response inappropriately. And so then you end up doing this situation in non-survival situations. It doesn't go well, right? If you're super hungry and you're in your doctor's office and he has a lunch there, if you're thinking short term, you're going to take that lunch. But if you want that doctor to help you, you probably shouldn't take that lunch. but you're not thinking straight. So when people are in survival mode, they can say things, do things that make the situation actually worse. And so that's part of the problem. It's hard to do the work of decluttering this when you are in a constant state of being triggered, or as we say, not relaxed. When you are relaxed, your survival system is not activated and you're able to calmly process things. And what does that mean? That is very simple. You feel the feelings. You allow the feeling to come, honor it, thank it as part of you, because it is part of you. Even if someone else triggered it, your responsibility is that you gotta own that feeling that you have, because that's a part of you. That's only you. No one gave you that feeling. They triggered it, sure, but they could only trigger it because it set off the bomb in you, and this is yours. This isn't anyone else's. And as painful as that realization is, it's crucial to any form of long-term recovery. And so, what do, right? It's nice for Dr. Gill to hear, say that just declutter your mind, just feel the feelings. Well, what if this evokes a state of fear that's so powerful that you can't focus? What if this invokes and creates a system whereby you're just going day by day, and it's hard to read a book, it's hard to concentrate, it's hard to, nothing happens. And so we're going to talk today about how do you approach this, and I'm going to give you some paradigms to think about. And with all things that I say, take it with a grain of salt. Be a scientist. Experiment with it. Don't dismiss it out of hand, but experiment with it and be skeptical. Because then you'll take what works and leave what doesn't. And so what we're going to talk about today is the reversal of this, right? This is kind of like that sort of clouded over subconscious, the garbage can landfill. And what we're saying is self-therapy leads to this situation as a medication, and unfortunately, I'll use red for this. If you stop your self-therapy, this reemerges. Because that's kind of the thing, is that if you stop your blood pressure medication, guess what? Your blood pressure goes up. So a lot of things we talk about here, the things that calm you down, get you back here into logical long-term and short-term partnership of your mind to allow you to think for the highest good of all involved in you and your life. When you stop doing those things, you're going to go back here. So we have to learn, how do we do these things, not just in the short term, in a binge sort of way, like going on a vacation retreat thing and binging out on self-care and learning a bunch of stuff. Well, unless you maintain it, that other state, which took years to develop, will reassert itself very quickly. So, what we're going to talk about is two things: breathing and journaling. Tremendous amount of evidence to support breathing and journaling in the mental health, addiction, chronic pain. All of these conditions have a tremendous wealth of research supporting the use of breathing in chronic pain. What I'm going to tell you is how you can use both and leverage both. So we said the subconscious garbage can, right? The bomb comes in, blows a bunch of stuff up, creates a sense of restlessness in the mind, usually by activating survival instinct. suppressing the higher mind. So first, before you can do any kind of deep work with yourself, you got to come back to a state of calm. You got to temporarily come back to a state of calm and then take some sort of positive action to get rid of a bit of that garbage. And the key thing here to realize is that no matter who you are, no matter what your problem is, the breath as a priority of your survival mind is always number one. It's always number one. And so, if you can use controlled breathing to calm down by focusing on the breath, you are able to immediately, typically within 3 minutes with practice, to temporarily create a sense of calm. Long, deep breathing has been shown to arrest the process of the thinking, overactive, restless mind and bring it to a point of focus on the breath. Now, why is that? Well, the breath is the highest priority. So if you imagine if someone's choking you with their hands, that's going to invoke a lot of fear and anxiety. Even just imagining it's going to invoke fear and anxiety. Even more so, actually, than a sleeping bear right over there. Sleeping bear over there is of lower priority than someone actively choking you. Why? Because one's immediately threatening your breath. The sleeping bear is hypothetically going to be attacking you. Hypothetically is going to be distressing you. But the immediate threat is to your breath. And that supersedes the sleeping bear. So you can actually take your focus off the sleeping bear, which may or may not be a real threat, right? Like we talked about last time. It could be a perceived threat. Maybe that bear is actually just a pussycat that you're just seeing as a bear. But regardless, you can take your focus off the sleeping bear onto your breath. And your mind will let you do that because you are taking advantage of its natural system of priority. And even though these lower things can get reprioritized, the top thing never does. That's the breath. And so I'll share some ways that we can use the breath to calm ourselves down so that we can think, we can process, we can feel a feeling. We can use a breath to bring down the intensity of a feeling. And usually it's overwhelming emotion that we run away from. We don't usually run away from a little emotion. It's when that emotion goes from 0 to 100, just like that, and at 100 it overwhelms us. So what we have to do, is develop a way for us to calm the mind, which is the breath. That's one of many ways. There's many ways to do it, to connect to self. The easiest to learn is the breath, but there's others like meditation. Some people use prayer for this. Some people use, a warm bath. There's all sorts of ways out there, but the breath is the one that we're going to focus on for this. And then we're going to talk about journaling as a way to delve and learn to transform. So first thing I want to just quickly draw here is a graph. Okay, so I'm going to draw two lines on here. I'm going to draw one that is sort of brown, and this is I suppose I'll delineate what this graph is. It is depth into self, and this is time. I like graphs because graphs help us understand things. And and understand relationships. So depth into self, what that means is how deep into you do you go? If you have a very clouded subconscious, lots of stuff there, whether you realize it or not, the deeper you go into that, the scarier it can be. But if your subconscious is transformed into a clear, beautiful place, then actually going into that's going to be deeply relaxing. And I think we all have that capacity to have our mind to be deep, clear, and beautiful. So the act of going into the self will be kind of like a relationship. So when you have a relationship to yourself that's positive, it's like going on a long date with someone you love. It's enjoyable. The more of it, the better. But imagine going on a date with someone you detest and being forced to do that for 2 hours. The longer it goes, the more uncomfortable it is, right? So one of the things about this is that the deeper you are in yourself, the more, let's just say, the more positive a relationship you have with yourself. So down here, it's kind of like happiness, contentment, bliss, serenity, right? So on the lower end of the spectrum is your bliss, your happiness, the serenity, and on the higher end is crisis, unmanageability. And everything in between. So that's what depth into self means. And so what I'm going to describe here is what people do when they are usually pursuing self-care. This is going to illustrate a couple of points, which is that the people know that meditation is good for you. People know that doing relaxation things are good for them. It's not that people don't know. So the thing is that episodically, when people do things that are good for them, they go deeper towards this, maybe even a really deep dive, but then they don't maintain. So then shortly thereafter, they go on a vacation and they end up back in the crisis zone where they were. And then when they don't maintain, when they don't sort of understand that, they come back up and then they conclude that whatever that intervention was doesn't work for them. And so this leads us to our first point. Any kind of connecting to self works. If you're human, it works. If you're not human, I don't know, but I presume mostly it's humans that are watching this video. So everything works. Journaling works for 100% of people. Breathing works for 100% of people. You have to learn to make it work for you. And that's what we'll talk about. So we'll call this the episodic self-care. Right? So they're not going to maintain any significant amount of depth into self. They will do some stuff once in a while, feel a bit better, stop, and continue to be at that. So the second sort of person that I'm going to illustrate is the journaler, the daily journaler. Okay, so the journaling is the act of writing of what's coming out of the mind and downloading that onto the page. And so the journaler becomes good at connecting to themselves in their mind and then taking what's in the mind and putting it on the page. They can, just like if you vent to a friend, and the friend's kind of like, I'm tired of your venting. Well, if you vent into a journal, unlike your friend who will get tired of your venting, a journal never tires. It's just you expressing. So if you're going to vent negative energy, it's usually better to just do it on a piece of paper. And so that's one of the benefits of it, is that you can just vent and allow yourself to sort of come out. So what journaling, so if you're kind of in a crisis unmanageability thing, journaling will usually pretty slowly allow you to kind of come down. If you maintain a regular practice, it'll allow you to achieve kind of a depth over a long time. And if you keep that practice going, perhaps it will let you go down deeper here. The trouble is, with journaling, when you do it, it doesn't take you deep into yourself very quickly. Why is that? So we've all had this situation where, we're in a crisis moment, we're not thinking straight, we're angry, we're upset, and someone comes along and says, it's not a big deal, just calm down. Why don't you just calm down? Well, if you could, you would, right? It's not a logical thing. When you're in your head, it's actually relatively difficult to just write out through language and kind of just come back to a place of neutrality. So journaling is only as good as your connection to yourself. It's limited by some things like words. It's limited by the words the words that come to your mind in that moment of crisis. And so a lot of people, what they do is they just wallow in the negativity. And the trouble is they don't always stick with it because it's so negative all the time. So they're just venting. So and if you're only venturing into the negativity, chances are you stop, or chances are you're not learning to transform. So when you're in a crisis moment, journaling works a lot slower to get you calm. So, like we said, you can learn to pair things. And one of the best pairs I've ever learned and found works with people is pairing breathing and journaling. And so here's what happens with that. So let's say you're in a point of crisis and you learn to do some deep breathing. Okay, so you learn to do some long deep breathing. You're going to go very quickly. In yoga, they usually say within 3 minutes. But very quickly, you're going to go rapidly calming yourself down and coming out of crisis into a place of calm. Now, if you stop breathing, you'll maintain that calm, but chances are, unless you maintain, you're going to go back up. So then what you can do when you're here, then you can begin journaling. Now you're journaling, you're delving into self, you get more clarity. You're not just expelling the negativity, or you're not just kind of talking about why you blame so-and-so. You are instead getting to the core of the issues, the core of those little items inside the garbage can. And as you get to the core, you start feeling and experiencing those emotions. And you also realize that it's not all doom and gloom. You get perspective, you get distance. And if you were to regularly combine breathing, so in this state of calm, breathing is actually very deep activity, especially if you slow your breath further. You can allow yourself to get further. So breathing takes you deeper into yourself faster. What breathing doesn't do is sometimes allow you to, it doesn't allow you to get out of your head. So if you're a very experienced meditator, then all you need to do is just meditate and breathe, and you can clear things. A lot of people, though, their minds are kind of like a house of mirrors. They start thinking about things, and then they think of 5 opposite things about that, and they achieve no resolution, only frustration. Those are the people, which is most people, who benefit a lot from combining breathing and journaling. Breathing and journaling, breathing and journaling. So, breathing to calm, journaling to maintain and delve and go deeper. A bit more breathing to calm, to get more stillness, and more journaling to get more depth. And so there is a very, very important element to journaling that I will kind of talk about here, which is that in literature, studies have shown that journaling, not all journaling is as equally effective. So when you journal negative stuff all the time, like I said, you're generally at risk of stopping because it actually brings up trauma. Journaling represents the most complex of psychotherapies, but like all psychotherapies, if it's all negative, if there's no hope and love and happiness stuff in there, then it's a very short-lived psychotherapy session because you just won't keep going. So journaling has the ability to bring up stuff, and if you're severely traumatized, it can bring up that stuff too. And that can quickly return you to a place of crisis. So how do you prevent that? Well, studies consistently show that a particular kind of journaling, which is gratitude journaling, which is journaling that's kind of, you've exposed all the negativity, you've written about your day and who did what to you and how that made you feel. You started feeling the feelings. And then you flip it and you say, hey, well, what's the silver lining here? What's the positive thing here that I can take away from this? Yeah, it's all negative, all that stuff happened. But let me try to find 3 or 5 positive things about myself, about my attributes, my character, my inner child, my environment that I just love and appreciate. And as you learn to go into negativity and then see the positivity, over time you achieve something that we call transmutation of your emotions. Transmutation of your negative emotions that are pushing you up here allows you to delve deeper, faster towards your positive emotions and positive feelings like happiness and contentment. So when you pair journaling with gratitude journaling, you can start rapidly coming down into a relationship with yourself and develop that positive outlook that every healthy, happy person will have, where they can view the glass as half full, not half empty. And that's a daily thing, right? It's I told one lady or somebody to sort of look at someone that she resented, and she found it really hard to look at that person. We all have that, right? Where we have that one person in our life that we just don't really like, and we resent that. But the more you sort of look at that person and visualize them in a positive way, write about them. There's a saying that, if you really hate someone, the best thing you can do is pray for them. Pray for their health, send them good vibes. And what that does is every sort of abuser or bad person in your mind lives there, even if they are dead. This is very common. People's loved ones or people's resented ones who've passed away, but they're still bothered by their mom or their dad or a grandparent or someone who ever did something. And as difficult as it is, that process of noticing the positive in that memory, in that emotion, allows for that transmutation to occur. And of course, I suggest starting with something mild. If you have not known love your whole life and it's really tough, then you gotta go real slow and real gentle, little doses here and there. And starting with just noticing, writing out 3 good things in a day, doing your deep breathing and then writing out 3 positive things allows you to learn how to reframe that. And someone told me recently how they wrote 3 positive things, but that led them on to 25 positive things. Because the truth is, there's trillions, there's infinite number of positive things every day, from the breath, the clothes I wear, my wife, or this beautiful air that I'm breathing and the beautiful breath. There's infinite things to be grateful for, which you'll start to notice as you build. That's why the studies affirm gratitude journaling as having superior data supporting it compared to regular stream of consciousness journaling. And the benefit of combining them is insight and awareness. You can get to know yourself more through stream of consciousness writing. You'll surprise yourself what you can pull out of your mind. Some ludicrous things like a pussycat that you thought was a sleeping bear, but through journaling you realize that it is really just a pussycat. And I don't know why I thought that was a bear, but the mind is funny like that. So in this lecture, what we've talked about is the benefits of combining the journaling with long, deep breathing. Long, slow, deep breathing. The average human breathes at a rate of typically around 16 breaths a minute. The average human's an anxious human, though. And so if you want to breathe in a relaxed pace, a really, really good breath to do. Inhaling over 5 seconds, holding for 5 seconds, exhaling over 5 seconds. Anyone can do that. That's just a matter of attention to your breath. Inhaling, holding, and exhaling. So that kind of up and down, inhaling, 5 seconds, hold, 5 seconds, exhale, 5 seconds, will rapidly create a state of relaxation that will allow you to sort of get this decrease. I sometimes will do that in hostile meetings, or when people are upset with me, right? Feel myself going up, I just start, slowing my breath. You can slow it further. 10 seconds in, 10 seconds hold, 10 seconds out. It's good, really good for your health. The breath is the biggest vitamin you can take, really. And so I had an asthmatic person that has COPD, smoker lung, asthmatic, and he was on lots of puffers and stuff, and he actually really improved his control of asthma just by learning long, deep breathing, inhaling over 10 seconds, holding for 10, exhaling over 10. And you can kind of push that to maximum 20 seconds is what they say. I wouldn't go any slower than that, but so 20 in, 20 out, 20 out, that represents 1 minute breath, which is a very deeply meditative breath that you'll find helpful. And the reason you'll find it helpful is because your mind is going to squirm when you start breathing and you start slowly breathing. What your mind is going to do is it's going to activate the survival instinct. And this is the last thing I'll just share about breathing, which is that survival instinct and the activation of that, there's a very important nuance. When you choose to slow your breath down consciously, that's very different than someone choking you. So when you choose to slow your breath down, it will raise this threat response. It will activate this, but it'll do it in a manageable way. So a lot of people feel anxiety when they try to do slow breathing, and they should. That just means that they're doing the right thing. They're activating their mind. But what they're doing is with every breath that, oh my God, I'm going to die. And yet with every breath, nobody dies. You start retraining your mind. You're breathing. Feelings of panic are happening, but you know nothing's happening. So slowly you're taking over control again of your mind. And the important thing about long, deep breathing, slowed breathing, is just to sit in that. If you get that anxiety, heck, if 5 seconds in, hold, and out is hard for you, then start at 3, start at 2, start at 5, 4. But wherever you're at, you start feeling that feeling like you really want to breathe. Try to just hold for 1 more second. If you're holding your breath and you really want to breathe out, just sniff in your breath a little bit more. See if you can hold out just that 1 or 2 seconds. Because that's where the retraining happens. Because you feel like you're gonna, pass out or something, but no one passes out from, holding, like breathing at a rate of 4 breaths per minute. 5 seconds in, holding out is not medically gonna compromise you. Unless you have some severe lung condition, of course, which I would, listen to your body. But the thing is that your brain will send you signals telling you, what are you doing? Don't do that, don't do that. And in little bits, little steps, overriding it for just a few moments, tells your brain to calm down. It says, no, you're good. You reassert this situation every time you do that. And the breath is just a really good opportunity for you to do that. And so over time, you can rev down your system and reverse this state and make it operate more like this state. And so that allows you to, in time, tackle these elements that are clouding out your mind. So that's kind of how it all would tie together as one way of starting to depopulate and deal with stuff that's been suppressed for a long time. So again, as always, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that you will give these things a try as just offerings, as evidence-based offerings of things that allow you to reduce reliance on unhealthy ways of coping. So I seek forgiveness if I've misrepresented anything or if I've misspoken. And please do contact me if you have any questions. And I'm feel so honored that you stuck it out to listen to this video. So more videos are to come. This was part 4 of self-therapy.